And here we are, Nick, the last episode of a year of podcasting.
It's kind of cool, dude.
It's kind of cool. I don't know if I've said this before. What I remembered when we originally started talking about doing a podcast was I just really wanted to be at a point where I could be like, yeah, we're on episode 17. Like, I feel like for whatever reason, 17 is going to be the number. Like, where I feel like it wouldn't be so new and so embarrassing to tell people.
Yeah, that's true.
And now
I have a much easier time telling people now, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, now the problem is it's like, oh, yeah, I have this podcast that I've been doing for now it'll be over a year after this episode. And that's a long time. It's like the opposite. It's like, I'm just a little embarrassed to tell you I've been doing this secretly. But I have this podcast that I've been doing for a year.
I know.
But it's pretty cool.
It is.
Any initial, any reactions from recording our last episode of the year?
Yes. One, okay. It's very cool because we've stuck with it. We've done it every week. And I didn't know how seriously to take. I didn't know how seriously it was going to, how much we were going to dedicate to it. And yeah. And two, dude, did you feel like we were going to figure out some more specific niche or more specific thing to talk about than we did? Because that's what I thought we were going to do. I thought it was just going to be less general topics that remain interesting and that we were going to just find something that we dove into. But I'm not like that. My brain's ADD and I love this format of just it reminds me of video essays, but just in a more casual discussion kind of way, and that we can just talk about what the hell ever, whether we give it tons of research or not. And also, I'm not giving it the seriousness of a video essayist probably does, but whatever.
Like any good video essay that's presented in an audio form? Question mark.
Exactly.
My response comes in two parts. So, one, I really enjoy this format in general. It will not surprise anybody to know that the thing that we're doing is not a thing that is original. A lot of people do this thing that are much more that have a much wider reach than what we do.
Hey, but Jeff, all art is derivative, okay? All of it.
Yeah, all art.
Okay. God,
shut up, you idiot. But legitimately, I'm just doing this because it is a thing that I enjoy doing. It's a thing that I enjoy consuming, and it's a thing that I enjoy making. So that's my first part. My second part is that I find this sort of thing therapeutic to listen to, but I think the reason why I enjoy making this podcast is because I genuinely find talking to you about dumb things that I find fun and interesting therapeutic in a way that it's a creative outlet, but it's a creative outlet with a good friend talking about fun things. And where else can you find that sort of thing right now?
You totally can't.
It's not. And I don't mean to stroke your ego too much, but you're really fun to talk about these things with. And it really feels good to be able to actually have an outlet to do that, because I am a creative person. I got really excited in high school when all that I wanted to do was do pottery stuff because I was good at it and I enjoyed doing it and I enjoyed working hard at it. And I can't go to high school and I would get the cops called on me.
Yeah, right? I was gonna say, I'm sorry.
Right, you could do anything once, but no, I can't go do pottery at high school anymore. But I really enjoyed the creative experience. I really enjoyed doing our middle school announcements when I was in middle school. I enjoyed editing it and I enjoyed doing it. I joked about how that didn't qualify me for being a good editor of a podcast, and I 100% stand by the revisionist history version of that, which is correct in saying that I was not good at that. But
you've gotten it really down. The edits feel very sharp to me. I mean, I am biased, of course, but
they're objectively better than they were for the first few episodes. Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
Of course.
But no, it is such a nice outlet that I expected to have the creative side of like the creative itch scratched because I've always enjoyed that, but it scratches a lot more itches than I thought it would, which is a weird thing to say. But like I really enjoy doing a podcast. Like it's really fun. It lets me like research things, which is a sort of thing that I really enjoy doing. It lets me dive deep on certain issues. It lets me spend a ton of time editing audio, which is a weird thing that apparently I enjoy. And if nothing else, if I don't enjoy any of those other things, I just get to hang out with people that I wouldn't have otherwise hung out with, as you all know, because we rarely talked, like far less than we do now anyways.
Yeah, it's way, we could talk way more. I totally agree with you that this is like hitting a creative urge that I didn't really realize that I had. I'm glad that it's working well to hit yours as well. Like that it hits, that helps with like making you feel more creative and getting you to like have projects to work on it. I know that you're kind of good with like creative projects. I've always kind of thought that you were from other stuff that you've talked about with me. So that's good. I will say it's interesting because I have imposter syndrome with basically everything that I ever do, and I know that we do. Like it's when we talk about a topic, we call them like that we've researched it. Like we've always said a bunch that it's internet research, not lab research.
Yeah.
But I think us doing this in a very like entertainment style way, like if the term infotainment, which is not us, but we'd be like all caps tainment and then like size 2 info, right? But like I think that makes it like it quells my imposter syndrome fears. Like when at my old job, whenever I was tasked with training someone new, I'd be like, "You want me to train a new hire? You want me to do what? Are you sure I'm qualified to do that? I've only worked here for 5 years.
You want me to explain anything remotely complicated or interesting to a group of people?
Right,
That's
right.
crazy.
Right, but like the fact that we're doing it as a conversation that's just fun and like laughing at it the whole time makes it feel a lot better. And dude, I've enjoyed it so much. It's been such a good creative outlet and a good conversational outlet and a good way to reconnect for us. And yeah, it's been perfect for me, man.
Yeah, and I really appreciate our listeners, even when you tell us that we're wrong. Honestly, mostly when
Probably
you tell us that we're wrong.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like it has been a lot of fun, and I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be able to have an audience, even if it is like a weird amateur podcast audience where it's a little bit like I'm just wandering into the Wild West of people and talking to people, but it's fun. I enjoy it a lot, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But yeah, I think we should probably. I mean, I feel like that's enough. I feel like that's good enough. Like,
no more navel gazing or whatever it's called. Yeah, it's not good.
Way to make it weird. All right, let's start the show. To the year we started a podcast, the episode where we finished a first year of podcast, where I am your co-host Jeff,
and where I am your other co-host Nick,
where we land gracefully and talk about some of the things that are fun and interesting to us. I skipped part of that. That's fine. It's fine. It's all good. We've done it for a year. Who could expect anything better than what we've already given them at this point?
Certainly not me. Don't worry.
Okay, look. You know what? We got sentimental at the top, but I do want to. I want to bring it back to our roots. Nick, if I was to say, what do you think the roots of this podcast are? I mean, specifically the roots that I bring as the co-host Jeff. What would you say?
I would say
what do I bring?
Positivity and knowledge of a lot of miscellaneous stuff.
Okay.
Positivity and Lightheartedness is what I would say.
Okay, well, that's very kind of you. We're just going to continue to be kind to each other throughout the show. Okay,
that's going to be my new resolution for the one episode. For the one episode.
Hey, no, this is still the first year. So like next year's
for the rest of this year, I will be kind.
For the next, thank you. Okay, so Nick, I'm honestly, you know what? I kind of take back everything that we talked about. Like I'm a little bit offended that you didn't know that the thing that I bring to this show is social awkwardness and social anxiety and etc.
Oh, Jeff, that's because I also bring that. You don't think I bring that, but I bring a lot of that, a lot of that.
Okay. Before I even tell this story, so like behind the curtains, like me and Nick, we record this show, and then I edit this show. And then I proceed to like remove all memory of the show, apparently, from my head. And occasionally we like repeat topics. I want to make dead sure, Nick, that at least you're on board with me. Have I talked to you about mystery ice cream delivery?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It didn't sound familiar in the topic thing.
Okay, I want to make, like, if we're going to be wrong, we're going to be wrong together. And if we're wrong at, like, midway through, you're going to stop me and correct me.
I just want you to know that I have consumed so much caffeine and sugary nonsense in my life that, like, my brain is not functional. Like, I don't believe that it is any longer, like, a fully functioning human adult's brain. It's just, like, a mess of, like, caffeine addiction. And if I don't know, it's not my fault. I cannot be held accountable.
You cannot be held accountable. Exactly. That's fair. All right, we're going to dive in. Okay, so Nick, you know how I am with people. I don't even know how else to like expound upon that.
Just,
like
I do.
I generally like to not inconvenience people. Like I feel very awkward about that. So my wife has been going through some work stuff. We are very, very fortunate to be in the position that we are. She gets to work from home and by and large gets to like hang out with our kids when they're doing like kids stuff. But she's been going through some work things that have been hard. And it was one night, it would have been maybe like last Thursday or something like that. So like a week ago or shortly less than that. And somebody showed up at our door and came with an order from like Uber Eats or something like that. And Nick, I'll tell you, do you remember like the original story from somebody bringing food? Okay,
they brought food to your neighbor's place, and you had.
It was our food, but it got delivered to our neighbor's house, and we found out a little bit too late after they'd eaten part of it.
Yep,
and they felt terrible. And it was the middle of the pandemic. So, like, just all these things added together equaled a very, very awkward encounter with our neighbors. So this person comes over, is like, hey, here's some ice cream from a local ice cream place. I'm delivering this to you. And we're like, oh, hey, you know what? We didn't order this. But the people across the street, they have the same street number as us, but different street name. So it's probably theirs. So you just walk across the street and like go give that to them. And it was like a half hour later. And then the same girl knocks on our door again. And she's like, hey, this has been lots of confusion. I've worked really hard. I finally like got a hold of the person who was supposed to deliver this or who bought this. And she said it was for you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, you have been working on this for a half hour. I appreciate you. I appreciate this so much. Man. I accept. Honestly, at this point, I don't even know any of the details. All I can say is thank you. I accept it. Please, you've been removed from the responsibility of this. And like, I took the two ice cream. They were like in like cups. Like they were like frosty cups, but like from a different, not from Wendy's, but like from another local place.
Style.
But they had like ice cream inside these cups. I'm like, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. But like, I was so awkwarded out that I didn't like know how to respond right away. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like this poor girl has spent half an hour. She's like a delivery driver for Uber Eats or whatever, has made probably like $5 this entire time,
and yet had to make sure that delivery was the right place.
And like went way out of her way, like more so than anybody else. And so like I don't carry cash on me, and so like I panicked like super bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this poor girl deserves a tip. And so like I run into my wife, like into our bedroom, and ask my like, Katie, like do you have cash? And she's like, yes, I have cash. This is my wallet, and my purse. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And I I just like rob my wife of cash, and like run out, and like she's like driving away, and like I sprint her down. I'm like, hey, whoa. And like, hey, thank you so much for making this happen. And I tipped her nicely. And, nice. But like, if she would have not, like, if she would have driven away like 30 seconds earlier or 10 seconds earlier,
you wouldn't have found her. You wouldn't have gotten her.
We would not have this podcast. Like the fact that I would still, yes, exactly. I would be like going through the streets trying to find this.
Oh my God,
Nick, okay, yes, I consider myself like a.
Wait, did you say what day this was? Was this just now?
It was like half a week ago.
Oh, okay.
Like Thursday or something like that. But like, Nick, if I could not have found her and I would have been dealt the guilt that would have been like, hey, this girl was super nice, tried to find you guys like to deliver this, finally figured out that you were the right place, and also had to do it for no tip, like I would have died. Like 100% would have died. Like,
oh my God.
Like we talked about the funny thing about like where like my coffee place that I go to where I feel guilted to just tipping $1 despite the fact that it's $2.
I was literally going to mention you said that you tipped well, and I was like, oh yeah, like you tipped the freaking coffee place with their $1.
Shut up! I told you, Nick. I told you I would tip them $100 if I didn't have to answer the awkward question.
I failed my commitment to be nice to you for the rest of It took me 17 minutes of recording. That's all I had to be.
Oh man. God. But no, it was just like, oh my gosh, like I felt so bad. And I literally ran out with my wife's purse with like trying to fish out her wallet like to give her money, because like what a great person to spend that much time to actually figure out who this belonged to, because as a person who's been wronged on the other end of like just having your food delivered to your neighbor's house and they eat it, like that was 10 out of 10 awkward. And somebody like taking the time to like make sure they found the right place, and it was ultimately so like a nice thing on the on the part of my wife's workplace. And like we just didn't know, and I turned them away. I felt so bad, and I'm so glad that we were able to chase her down, because like I would feel so bad. Like there's nothing worse than the social awkwardness of like dealing with weird awkward encounters, dealing with tipping, but being the person who shorted somebody and forced them to spend a half hour is like. That is just 10. Like that is 17 out of 10 worse for for me.
That would have been a lot of guilt for you.
Like, oh man, you spent like extra half hour and you just dropped that at my doorstep and left. Like, oh my gosh, please send me your address or Venmo or something, because like, oh my gosh, that was so bad. So that was quite uncomfortable.
It honestly sounds very uncomfortable. It sounds like your worst nightmare, basically.
Yeah, no, basically it was my worst nightmare. And I'm very glad that it worked out, because those people is good people. Like there's so many people that like are just doing a job, but if they are faced with like just driving off, because she could have easily just like picked the next job and moved on, but she took the time to actually try to figure this out and called somebody who was, a half a continent away to figure out where this was supposed to go, and then figured out with our weird, my city has terrible like marking systems for addresses, and she like was willing to figure out how all that worked and did it all. And what a good person. She deserved
sounds like they deserved it. Yep.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
So Nick, we have one of two things. So we can talk about some gratitude things, which I don't know, I feel like I've been a little bit mushy, or we can talk about some follow up on some sports things.
I mean, I'm happy with either one, dude. If you want to be mushy more, I'm down. Or we can, if you think it's too mushy and it's not fitting the thing, we can talk follow up on sports.
Let's talk about follow up on Actually, Nick, okay. Well, I do want to talk about follow up on sports. Before we do that though, do you know what sushi grade fish means?
No, tell me.
Okay.
What does that mean, Jeff? Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about this, and the only reason I really want to talk about it is because I talked about how I have some sort of allergy to some sort of fish. And so what I have done recently is I will go. Nick, when did you first have sushi? Like in your lifetime?
I can remember going to sushi for sure in my freshman year of high school. Probably around then is like the first time.
So like I don't know.
And I don't think it was fancy or anything.
Like 14, 15 or whatever.
Yeah, 14 or 15.
So I was like 25. And which I feel like is the difference between growing up where you grew up versus growing up in Kansas.
Just grew up in Whiteville, California, rich Whiteville, California. It's real good. Go ahead.
And I'm pretty sure that, I'm pretty sure that like at 14, you probably had better sushi than I've had probably in my life. I have some caveats to that probably, but like, more or less. Anyways, we talked about some sushi stuff the other day, and 2 episodes ago, I was like, I had a very, very clear allergic reaction to some kind of sushi that I had eaten. And this is not the first time that this has happened to me. Like, I love sushi. I'm like, it is my favorite food. But there is some kind of sushi. And like, the problem with me is I order, like, I want everything. Like, I want all of the sushi, like all the different types. I enjoy it so much. But there's one type of something that I am super allergic to. And so what I have done recently is I've stopped ordering all of the sushi, and I only order one type of fish at a time. And so like today I went to lunch and I ordered salmon, like salmon nigiri. And so like I just doing salmon stuff. Yeah. And I had no reaction.
That's a win.
It is a big win. But what it made me think of, like, man, can I, like, is this an accurate experiment? Because like I don't really understand what sushi grade fish means, and like maybe I just got like bad fish. I'm not really sure. And so
I don't know what it means either.
Okay, I want to tell you, but then I want to like ask a question after that. So sushi grade fish, from best I can tell, is sushi that is on the scale of fresh. Either one has been frozen for like 15 hours or something like that, very short amount of time if it's a very, very fresh, or 2 has been frozen for a week if it's like slightly less fresh. And the only reason why they do that, like there's no other reason other than it kills parasites. And so I think like if you get frozen salmon, like I'm pretty sure you can just like straight up eat that, which is very weird to me. Yeah, because I've always thought of like sushi as like some like magically pristine, very, very pure fish. But I think it is, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's just I'm eating raw fish that has been frozen for a second. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. All of it is, though. Like, I looked into a little bit more. Like, it's the same thing for like tuna and albacore and red snapper and etc. Like, it's all just fish that has been frozen for a second. Okay. And that feels really weird to me. It does. It does. Does that feel weird to you? Like that's what sushi is? Like you just does.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how to reconcile this. Like, yes, but I think it's just like normal. It's like, yeah, it's just frozen for just a little bit, right? Like it's just for a little bit, right? I don't know.
But like beef tartare, which is like the raw beef version of sushi, is also kind of the same thing, I think. Like,
I feel like we shouldn't trust that. Like that you're just eating raw food that you've only been frozen for a little bit. That doesn't seem good.
But maybe that's what my thing is like raw meat in general. Like I've been so ingrained in me as a bad thing, and it's like really, really weird to, one, even accept that as okay, but 2, like unapologetically enjoy beyond belief. Like I love sushi so much, and to know that is like, oh man, that's just like you just caught it out of the river, and then you froze it for like half a day, and then you're just good.
Fine.
Like just go to town. Now it's fine. It's just it's so wild to me. I don't know what to say about it. I don't even know what my point is. Like it's very.
I guess it's the juxtaposition between that and like meat, right? Because like you wouldn't do that with chicken. Like if you didn't cook the chicken, you'd die. You'd just be dead. It's just like, all right, well that's the end of Nick. So as this relates to sushi grade fish, like. One, I get that this is like that's the real thing, is that like I would never have thought that like freezing it is what kills the stuff, but I guess that makes sense. I've just never really questioned why it's okay in fish but not okay with chicken, and to a lesser extent not okay with beef. Because beef you don't have to cook as much to get, like you don't have to cook it almost at all, right?
Depending on the bacteria. Technically, yeah, beef you can just straight up eat raw. And honestly, most meat you can eat straight raw.
Okay.
It's just there's a percentage chance of badness that you have with that.
Right.
It's very interesting. But yeah, if you freeze fish for a certain amount of time, depending on how it was raised and etc., like you can just straight up like cut it off and take a bite and you're good. And that feels very weird. Like like if I were to go to like Walmart right now, I could buy some salmon from their like little meat section, put it in my freezer for 7 days. And technically that's sushi grade salmon when I thaw it out. But the amount of confidence I would have of pulling that out of my freezer, letting it thaw, chopping off a piece of it and straight up eating it without cooking it, that seems wild compared to going to whatever sushi restaurant, which by and large probably is doing about the same thing, give or take, because that is how it works. Like it is so like that is so incomprehensible one direction, but nonetheless, I still just do the opposite of that, which is just blindly trust the sushi restaurant to do the other side of it. It's very, very strange.
Jeff, in my the people that I trust the most in the world are the people preparing my sushi and the people preparing my poke, because if I start questioning it, that will question half of my meals that I eat out. Like when I eat out, like
only half, huh?
Only half. Yeah, only half of my DoorDash deliveries and restaurant visits are to sushi and poke. I think I'm probably actually more. You're probably right. I'm sorry.
Ah, man. No, I just want to eat fish though. Even like that's the wild thing is like even with all this weirdness, I love it so much. I like as a person who really didn't eat sushi at all until they were in like their professional career. Like, oh my gosh, it's so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Even if I have an allergic reaction occasionally, it's fine. I can feel like I have the flu. It's worth it. Nick, let's talk about this very interesting topic that I was like tangentially aware of to some degree, but not to probably the extent that you know. So you want to explain to our listeners what we're going to be talking about, and we can just kind of dive in.
Okay, so
it's interesting.
This week we're going to talk about the metaverse, which is a thing that's in the news a lot this year. I feel like this is a year of people just talking about the metaverse. And you say that you're tangentially aware of it. I don't feel like it's fleshed out enough that anyone can be super dug in. I've talked to some people who work in tech circles or tech related industries that seem to feel like they have a real good grasp on what the metaverse is, and I do not believe them. No offense to Chris or Tommy out there, I love you both, but I do not believe you. So what do you know about the metaverse, or would you rather me give a broad?
Here's my perspective. Yeah. One, it sounds like a thing that is 100% going to be a thing that we all like think of as commonplace in the next handful of years.
Sure.
I think that it is a thing that we feel like we understand and will realize how little we understand it in a few years. But like, if you want me to give a definition of what it actually is, it is our digital presence in the world, and represented by, and depending on who you, like, where you look at this, like by an avatar, but if nothing else, by some sort of digital identity.
Yes.
Where your experiences are all combined into this one way that you experience the broader internet and all the weird things that the internet does.
Right. You'll hear people call it like Web 3.0 because it's supposed to be like replacing the internet. Facebook is very bought into the idea that it will mostly be VR. It'll be like VR experiences or AR experiences. But I mean, there's so many visions for it. That's what I think is very interesting. Facebook or Zuckerberg said today that Facebook is going to rename itself, and they've said previously that they want to stop being considered a social media company and start being considered a metaverse company. Multiple big tech leaders, like I guess I say big tech leaders, mostly Zuckerberg and what's the name of the guy? Tim Sweeney from Epic Games, have talked about the metaverse being the future and talked about their platforms being more about the metaverse than about gaming or about Facebook, which I think has kind of made it a thing. Do you feel like the idea of a VR version of a metaverse is the kind of thing that is actually achievable in the next, I don't even know how long, like 10 years?
Man, this is weird. So my answer is no. But my like subtext answer is my experience with my son dealing with VR as a person who is 5 years old and has no context for any other video game, anything, or any sort of internet, whatever. And he asked me question, like, this is like a year ago. It's like, honestly, he had just turned 4 years old at the time. And was like asking me if this is real and is this a real place, and he wanted to go back to that he wanted to go back to that place after we had gone home. And I do feel like a younger generation is like infinitely more open to this than what we, like, you know, us old millennials are used to. Like, they are very, very open to that. Like, the more experiential through physical or through digital. Like, it doesn't really have a distinguishing like line that we draw for us. Like, because for us, like, going to the Grand Canyon and experiencing the Grand Canyon are inseparable for us.
Right.
I don't think that's the case for my kid. I don't think he separates that. Like,
well, I will say, if you made a sufficiently immersive VR experience, I don't think that I would really care that much about the difference. I mean, if I'm totally immersed in my senses, like, what am I missing out on? Being able to say that I was physically there? Like, I don't care about.
Like, what does that matter?
Right. But I don't feel like, am I crazy in thinking that that's not the limiting thing, is people being open to VR experiences and more VR tech, VR accessibility, and I mean, besides VR accessibility, how do you make a seamless production between multiple different companies and multiple different experiences? So, like, if, for example, talking about just avatar stuff, because people are very interested in the avatar aspect of it, I don't think that's as big as, for our listeners, there's a really big influence from two novels that are like basically about blueprints of a metaverse, Ready Player One and Snow Crasher. I haven't read either. I've seen Ready Player One, but like, there's a really, really big emphasis in those and having like a digital avatar that you get to customize and whatever else. But it's not a simple thing to get around IP for certain things. To like say that every digital platform can have a Batman avatar is not a thing that Batman's going to be in love with without, or Warner Brothers is going to be in love with without, or whoever owns Batman now, DC, I have no idea, without getting paid. And then two, okay, so you make a 3D version of Batman for Fortnite, because Fortnite is trying to do experiential stuff or Epic Games is trying to do experiential things inside of Fortnite as like a mini precursor or mini experiences of metaverse. Like I don't know if you've heard of like the in-game concerts, but it's genuinely kind of a cool thing. For our listeners, there's like they did multiple concerts with a giant Travis Scott. So like you're not actually playing an active match, but you're in the game with your friends, with your avatar, and you go to an area where a giant Travis Scott was doing a digital concert. And that's kind of cool. Like, I kind of dig the idea that, like, you could get online and, like, go to a concert with your friends. I would love the full concert experience all the time, but there's definitely... I'd rather go see a concert even digitally that I couldn't, than have to drive 4 hours, or if the band I want to see is across the world, not see them at all, right? Point being, okay, so you can get a Batman avatar in digital, or Batman avatar in Fortnite, but how does that translate to a more 2D space like a side scroller, or how does that translate to a VR space? Because it's not a VR model that like would be perfectly equipped to just like translate over. How does that translate to a lower resolution game like, I don't know, Minecraft? And is it all of that very restrictive in terms of like the hardware necessary to get it?
I relative to the internet, which is very accessible because you can get it on basically everything right now. You can get it on a $50 pay-as-you-go track phone or whatever. But you could not do anything of the sort with Fortnite or definitely not VR.
So I want to pull the ripcord as far as like talking about this from a video game perspective and just talking about. I love this conversation from an entertainment perspective.
Yeah.
Live experiences are a commodity that are extremely valuable. Like that has been a thing that, like, obviously, bands have taken advantage of, but also like comedians and other various forms of live shows, etc. And the obvious, restraint there is like you have to physically be there in person to experience the in-person experience, which seems like that seems obvious. But I do genuinely feel like that could be broken down and commoditized. So what I mean by that is one of the podcasts that I love that you know what I'm talking about. They have a in-person live show for the first time in a couple of years that will be out in Seattle.
Yes.
And I'm certainly not going to go to Seattle.
No.
I don't have the time, money, etc. to go to Seattle. Like that.
Or you at least don't have it for just this. Yeah.
Not for just this. But if I could pay $200 to have my VR body go walk into the theater and, except for my physical body being there, experience it live in person, that is a steal to me.
I totally agree.
And to experience that sort of thing, that is a physical event, but to be able to do so where I can like actually like feel like I'm there, like I have the VR, I can look around, I can see everybody around me. Maybe my corpse isn't there, but by all other intents and purposes, like I physically am there. Like I am there for all the sensory reasons I'm there. Like I have all of the like laughter around me. I have all of the visuals in front of me. I have the experience of having that happen in real time.
I totally agree.
Like to me, that is incredibly valuable in a way that I would pay significantly more than I would pay to like just show up to something that is local to me. Yeah. And the reason being is like I wouldn't have to like go buy a plane ticket and buy a hotel or two nights worth of hotel in order to go see them, even though it would be something that I would love to do. We're talking like an investment of $1,000 if I wanted to do it by myself, and probably $2,000 if I wanted to have my wife. And it's just that's not economically feasible. But if I could digitally be there, like in the same sense that I could physically be there, like that is fantastic. And that's where I see this growing so dramatically. Is I don't think physically being in places is going to matter as much, very much longer. at all.
When we talked about the VR thing with your son, I actually meant to bring up metaverse stuff because I completely agree. I completely 1000% agree with you. And it like like I said, I'm on board with like the idea that a VR experience could be just as good as a physical experience if you're just replicating vision, especially, right? Like if you get sufficiently good tech, like what are you missing? Or vision and audio, I guess. But like, what are you missing if you're going to a comedy show? Like a comedy show is like, I mean, sure, you can get food, you can have like the feel of the place physically, I guess, and like the smells, but you're not missing much. Like you're getting 99% of the experience that you want.
Certainly
right?
not $1,800 worth much. Like
right.
if you can get within a stone's throw of it.
Right. And there's experiences that you outright would not be able to have. Like, I mean, even if we're talking about the limitations of that, like, I mean, the limitation of that is just talking about the financial aspect, but there's some stuff that is just literally not possible to do. I couldn't go to a basketball game in New York and a concert in LA in the same day. Right? Like you just
or like head over to the Olympics in Japan, like briefly, and then head back to a concert that you wanted to go to in Minneapolis. Like it's just not a thing that happens.
Or how many? I mean, like I know that they sell out massive stadiums, but how many people would love to be at the Super Bowl but simply cannot get tickets? Like it's like Nick, you like, yes, 100%. If I could have paid to have a VR version of my experience watching the Super Bowl, right,
when the Chiefs won, like that would have been invaluable to me. Like I wouldn't have to be there. Like that's a very expensive like ticket to fly and hotel and etc. But if I could have just enjoyed being there virtually with people, like that's it. The physical part of it only matters so much, It's very weird. It's very weird.
Completely agree. But I am critical of the idea. So, like, I guess the reason that I bring this up, and I brought it up in a kind of adversarial tone, and I didn't mean to do that, but it's kind of where my head is always at when it comes to things like Facebook, is I guess I just don't see the internet, or like, I don't see the internet being replaced so seamlessly, and I don't see that, like, big tech companies have a vested interest in proclaiming the future, because when they proclaim that tech is going to go a certain way, that technology is going to shape a certain way, especially very large changes, they are pushing for a change that they can capitalize on, right? They say this stuff in part because they want to be able to capitalize on it. Facebook, for instance, is saying, or Zuckerberg in a thing in a way that sounded very dystopian to me, said, imagine being able to work anywhere, anytime. And, like they had a presentation where he's apparently, I didn't actually watch the presentation. I don't remember if that one was actually publicly available or not, but I was reading a Verge article on this, and he did a interview with The Verge. The reason I was reading that is he was talking about having like digital whiteboards that you could log into a VR meeting for instead of Zoom, and everybody could be around and everybody could physically engage with a whiteboard. And I just don't see that actually brings a ton of utility that would justify bringing VR headsets. And I also think that would make us like disconnect from our, it would make our work-life balance even more hard to regulate if like we were expected to be on calls and with a VR headset on all the time. I feel like people would, the idea would be, oh, well, you get to go home and then you don't have to drive into work. And there's truth to that. But I just picture it as being more on call and more connected and more watched at all times because you're on a VR space. And it's like, why aren't you moving around in VR? What, do you take your headset off so you can go walk your dog or something, or or pay attention to your kids or whatever?
Yeah, that seems a little out of touch a little bit, because I especially I don't know if I would have had this opinion like pre-pandemic, but especially as a person who has worked through a pandemic, the idea of a remote or a digital whiteboard or whatever the frick, like that is not in touch with the reality. Whiteboards, in my opinion, are the greatest thing ever when it comes to collaboration, but they are a in-person physical medium only.
Totally.
Like there's a certain reason why that works, and I don't exactly understand why it is, but it does not translate digitally at all. Like it is truly, it is the greatest accomplishment of physical interpersonal communication that doesn't we'll have to figure out the equivalent for digital, but it's not trying to recreate the experience of physical in digital space. Like it is not, that is not happening. Like 0%.
Completely agree. And that's my point is that I feel like we are being told a lot by a couple of people, not told a lot, but like there are a couple of very vocal voices in the idea of the metaverse, and one of them is Zuck. And I don't mean to just come into this with my anti-Facebook bias, but also it does feel like some of those voices are very out of touch. And also it's so hard to know what this is going to look like. Like, okay, so are concerts going to be just VR, or are they going to be like digital and VR? Because right now they're just digital. They're just regular old on your screen. And that seems to be pretty cool for most people. I don't know that, like, would I really want to be in like a digital mosh pit or stand? Like, not really, right? Like, that doesn't do anything for me. So there's a lot of like uncertainty with how much of this will be VR or AR related, how much of this can be just utilizing like existing tech, how much does it really replace like the internet as we know it. And I think that the voices that are out there, and there's more than just Zuckerberg. I don't want to just focus on him. There's Tim Sweeney's big on it too, the Epic Games guy that is. Roblox, funny enough, it likes to talk about themselves as kind of doing metaverse stuff, which is it's interesting. I don't really know anything about Roblox, so I didn't look into them at all with this. But it's interesting because and obviously there's a huge NFT and crypto integration with all this. There's
of course
the idea of like NFTs right now that you're purchasing being your avatar forever going forward, and that's why there's like some of them are valuable, like some of the NFT like art that's out there right now. I don't know how true that is, or how much people will care about transferring your NFT from one platform to another. And all of this is to say, I am critical of the idea that like our current big names in tech will have all of the answers. And I think all of the answers that they're saying right now, they are saying in part because they're hoping to speak it into existence for their own reasons. Like Facebook wants you to be focused on the work side of things because Facebook is in the work side of things. They aren't the Netflix. Yeah. They aren't the concert the concert venues. They're not the sports teams. They are the people who can facilitate a workplace interaction, right? And that's why they bring up workplace interactions.
I have more I want to say. I don't know. I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but
no, you can tell.
It is.
Say it. You're good.
No, I don't even know. I don't know how to express it. Like, it feels simultaneously crazy, but also inevitable, if that makes sense. Like,
it does.
This seems so outlandish. Like
the idea of experiential media, like digital spaces.
Yeah. Like it seems far away in the short term, but in the long term, and long term honestly being defined as 5 years to 10 years from now, seems inevitable. And it's like, that's a weird place to live in. Like it just, I don't really know how to say it other than that. Like this seems crazy, but also the most inevitable thing that I could think of. No, I don't know. It's weird.
It's very weird. That makes perfect sense to me too. It feels like the thing that sci-fi has always said will happen, and so we have a vision of it in our head, and the vision actually kind of makes sense, right? Why couldn't you just go to a VR version of the Grand Canyon? Like, why not?
Well, and like legitimate, I could not get it out of my head. Like the thought of going to the Super Bowl in VR as opposed to watching it on my TV.
Oh, and Jeff, like, being able to like walk around like from the midfield line or whatever imagine if there was a VR version of the Super Bowl that you could watch if that was your team, and you could like walk behind the players, like not up to the players, but like right behind the players. No, not even the 50-yard line. You could walk all the way from 30 to 30, just like the players can, like just behind the players a little bit. And you could watch that entire thing happen. And you could see all the players reacting. Like, how much would you pay for that? Like, if a lot.
Like, I would pay a lot. Oh,
you got it completely on the nose, because I'd pay a couple $100 for really good seats to a good basketball game, right?
Right.
But like, you could get better seats than you'd ever get. Like, you'd get better seats than Jack has, because Jack still has to watch the other side of the court from whatever side of the court he's on, right?
Exactly.
So like, you'd literally have the best seats of all time, and yeah.
And honestly, like, what it would get to the point of is, like, you could literally walk on the mother effing field wherever you want and just, like, be the referee, more or less, and like, and just enjoy the game from wherever you want. Like, that is what it's going to get to.
Yep.
And at that point, those tickets are way more valuable than, like, watching it in person from the stadium. Are you kidding me?
Totally
like, if
agree.
you could just, like, stand on the field and watch it and, like, hear everything the way that everybody else hears it, like, that is, I don't know. That is the sort of stuff that I just, like, it seems madness, but it doesn't seem madness long term. Like, that seems very realistic. Like, we're really good at turning experiences into money. So
Totally.
I only feel like that's just inevitable. I don't know. Anyways.
Totally. I'll end with like, and that's the kind of monetization that I hope that we see with it. There's talk about, like, how do you monetize stuff and whatever else. I mean, just sell tickets, dude. Just sell tickets, dude. Like,
yeah, for real.
I really hope that it's not like advertisements all up in the space.
Gosh dang it.
I know.
It probably freaking will be.
Have you seen Ready Player One? Because
no, I have not.
It's okay. So, like, I'm gonna alienate somebody here, but it's not a good movie. It's a very, very bad movie. But the game, it's basically like set in a dystopia where corporations are, like, running the world, and everybody's playing this one video game to get away from how bad the world has become. And the bad guy is the corporation that runs the game, and their secret thing that they're planning on is implementing ads all over your VR screen. And they're like, we can cover 60% of the screen with advertisements without inducing a seizure. And
oh my gosh.
That's the most, like, I mean, it's very, very on the nose with it, right? With its criticism of advertising. But
have you watched Idiocracy? Have you watched Idiocracy?
Yes, okay. I have.
But, like, that literally sounds like Idiocracy.
It
like,
really does.
Oh my gosh.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, that's the reason that it's feared so much, is because we could just all see it happening, right? And that would be the sad part, is if it's like, all right, well, I do love this Super Bowl game, but every time there's a timeout, I do have to watch a Mountain Dew ad, or
I do have to hear about Brondo, the thirst mutilator.
Good old Brondo. Oh my gosh! All right.
Okay. Nick, we need to go. We need to. It's not that we want to. It's not that anything else. We need to go
We're
record.
Required by law, actually, unfortunately.
Our Patreon-only podcast. Yes, required by law.
Brondo has required it.
Brondo has made it so. It's called The Year We Started Another Podcast. It's a podcast where we talk about like NFL stuff, but also other things too, probably. We narrowed it. Like, we I don't make Nick call all the games anymore. Only some of the games. But it's still fun. So yeah, if you want to check that out, you can go to patreon.com/TiWasApp.
And you can also follow us at TiWasApp on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, but not Snapchat. And you can find all of that at TiWasApp.com.
Not Snapchat. Perfect. Good job,
yes.
Nick.
Did I say Snapchat? I'm good.
I think you started to. Anyways, Nick, thank you so much for potting with me.
For a whole year.
Oh, man. For a whole year. What? That is wild. It is so wild.
It's crazy. I appreciate you, sir. You're welcome. This has been the year we started the podcast. Thank you all for listening.